All right, so I guess we're going to start from the beginning, right? Now, how many of you are here because you are on a Hult Prize team? And the rest of you are here just because of the general discussion around entrepreneurship and stuff like that, right? Okay, cool. So we're going to get started by, obviously for those of you who are focused on the Hult Prize, you are going to be dealing with a very, very challenging issue, which is how to alleviate and improve living in congested urban environments, right? And there's an infinite number of potential solutions that you can bring to bear. And so your ability to frame the problem in a way that is meaningful is going to be critical, okay? So, one of the things I mentioned was picture the end in mind. Picture that you are in fact the team that is standing in front of President Clinton, Muhammad Yunus, Mo Ibrahim, Pramil Shah, and the cast of social impact luminaries that are the judges, right? You've got to be able to envision that success. That's the only way that this works. So you got to think big, okay? The second thing that you need to do is you need to start soon. So how many feel like you have gone into this and you're well on your way, you've got some momentum, you've got an idea, the team has been pushing on that idea? Okay, not a lot of you. Okay, so today's the day then, right? So, because sometimes, you know, later never comes, okay? Now, this is where we start getting into what I think is the kind of content that each and every one of you needs to think about. Now, let me make a couple of comments here. I have decided not to be a judge this year so that I do not recuse myself. I think I can add more value by helping the teams, both in contexts like this and in the individual one-on-one mentoring sessions. And if I've been helping you, then I can't judge you, right? So I have to recuse myself with many of you. So instead, I am going to try to help you by doing this workshop, another one after Thanksgiving, and meet with teams in smaller group settings. But I wanted to help us get started, okay? So what I'm about to tell you is the things that I believe, as someone who has been a judge for the last 4 years in San Francisco and Boston, as someone who has mentored literally 100 Hult Prize teams, as someone who has helped take one team all the way to the finals, these are the ways that I would go about it based on my experience. Now, every judge is different, okay? But I think that if you begin to think about these steps, it will give you a whole lot more clarity of thinking, right? So the first thing I've always told my students is, in order to be a great social entrepreneur, I first need to make you a great entrepreneur, okay? And so the first part of this presentation is about how do you do the things that great entrepreneurs do when they start to build their businesses, okay? And so I want you to all think about the fact that you are the founders of a startup, okay? Now, one of the things that's very important when you are the founders of a startup is you have to stand for something. You have to have a why. You have to have a purpose. And for many of you in the room who are my global management students, you know that this is a theme that is recurring through each and every class, each and every discussion, each and every case study, right? Every company, every business, every startup needs to stand for something. And so I will refer you to the wonderful TED Talk by Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, which is called The Power of Why, okay? And so he talks about the golden circle. And the golden circle, and all those of you who have been with me during the Lululemon discussion or during the discussions with our good friend Jack Welch and General Electric understand that it starts with the why. Only when you have a why do the what and the how matter. So you have come together as individuals and you have formed teams. And you have formed teams, I assume, with people that you have some kind of chemistry with, you have some kind of affinity with, you have some shared vision of why you want to do this, why you want to do this together, and how you want to go about it. But I would encourage you as teams to have a team charter, to have a team mission, to say this is who we are, this is what we want to do together, this is what we stand for. These are the values that we represent. That is an extremely focusing and energizing thing to get done, okay? Then we can get into the details of what we do and how we do it, okay? Now, one of the very first framework that I will introduce to you has a bit of a strange name, I will grant you that, okay? The Happy Startup Canvas, right? I'm not quite sure why they called it this, but this is a very powerful meta framework. And let me explain the pyramid. At the very top, the narrow part, is exactly what we just talked about. What is the purpose and vision of your social venture, your business venture, your family business, whatever it is that you're working on. If you're working on an open IDEO case, whatever you might be working on, okay? What is the purpose and vision? You start at the top, okay? Now that you understand your purpose and vision, the next thing that you think about is, you know, in terms of your values and your vision, now I want to go solve a problem. So in the context of the Hult Prize, I want to solve some problem that has to do with congestion in urban environments, okay? This is where you have to now define the problem. Now, for those of you who came to the Open IDEO kickoff 2 weeks ago, I spent a lot of time talking about design thinking, about the anthropological approach, about being very clear about what user you're targeting, and more importantly, validating that that problem exists, right? But you have to frame the problem. And here's the challenge with the Hult Prize, or with any massive challenge. You are overwhelmed by the tyranny of choice, right? You know what I mean by that? It means that you can do pretty much anything. And when you can do pretty much anything, people start to freeze up and they get paralyzed and they do nothing. So you need to get very clear, what problem domain do I want to invest my team's energy in? So this is where the problem solution, the third level from the top, comes in. This is the core of the lean value canvas. And this is where we're going to spend quite a bit of time. Okay? Because as Klaus said, it was the one thing he remembered, and the only guy that remembered anything from my talk, all right? And then you want to start to think about who are going to be the people that are going to be the early adopters of my solution, right? And who knows what the word early adopter means? Why is that such an important notion in the world of entrepreneurship? What are early adopters? Amir, what would you say there?
Basically, people who trust you and people who can follow your vision and see the entire global picture before you go show them your financials, your way of recovering money back.
Okay.
Where exactly is money?
So that's partially correct, right? If I hit someone, I'm sorry. Okay. You got it. Who else wants? So that's a great start. What's your name?
Sorry. So I believe the early adopters people who see not only the idea but also want to be part of it.
Okay.
And spread the word. So these are the people who are willing to try it out.
Okay, so that's cool. But let me get what is the underlying motivation? Okay. See that? Not bad. What's the underlying motivation for someone to be an early adopter? I got a cluster of smart people in the back center of the room. There must be something going on back there. You guys having some like high protein brain food back there together? 3 people sitting right next to each other. Okay, what would you say? Tell me your name. John. John, okay. What makes the people even want to be an early adopter? Not quite, okay? It's not necessarily a financial thing. Good catches back there. I'm impressed. Klaus, what would you say?
It's the people who share your vision.
Okay, so that's a part of it. But let me. Okay, yeah, Beatrice, and we're going to keep going. Okay, after Beatrice.
I think it also has to do with brand love, because for instance, early adopters of Apple products, they don't even care what they're buying, but since it's Apple, they already have the urge to be a part of it.
All right, so Apple is a bit of an unusual situation, right? There's only one Apple. So let me give you the answer, because we don't have a lot of time here, okay? Good catch, Beatrice. Early adopters are in pain, okay? They are looking to address a problem that drives them crazy, that frustrates them, that disappoints them, that gets in the way of their lives, that gets in the way of their productivity, that gets in the way of their success. And they are desperately seeking a solution to that problem, period, okay? Whether you are an Apple, and there's only one of those, but for all of you, right, in the Hult Prize, you're not yet quite at the Apple level, I think. So you don't have a brand, But what you do have is 2 ears and a brain. And you use those assets to go into the marketplace and say, what are some of the problems that keep you awake at night, that keep you from living your life fully, that allow you to realize sort of who you are and what your family does? Okay? Those are the problems, right? The more acute, the more intense those frustrations, those problems, the more rich there is an opportunity to create a solution. Does that make sense? Because they're thinking about, oh my God, how do I manage this? And so if you come by with a legitimate idea, they are so in pain, they are willing to work with a tiny little company, right? Because it's an irrational human act to work with a startup. It's a much more rational act to go buy something from Apple or IBM or, Pepsi-Cola, or you name the big organization, right? So when you're a young little company with no brand and a few people and no money, the only way you're going to get people's attention is to be focusing on the problem that they care deeply about and to have the credibility for them to believe you really know how to solve the problem. So at the bottom here, you're looking for those people that are the most likely to adopt your solution. Because until people have adopted your solution, you don't have customers, you're not a business, okay? So acquiring customers quickly legitimizes the social venture, right? So, next, some of you saw this slide in the Open IDEO presentation. There are 3 key pillars, okay? The first one is design thinking. Those of you who have been involved in the Open IDEO Challenge or who came to the meetup that we had, heard from Bhavna and myself, we did a little bit of a mini workshop on design thinking. This is a very critical part of the success of any business. I don't know how many people saw my Twitter post over the weekend, but IBM has just made an announcement that they're hiring 1,000 industrial designers all around the world. IBM is starting to apply design thinking to its business. So when IBM starts doing stuff, you know it's mainstream, okay? It's something that's been around for a long time, but now IBM's own CEO said, even though we're struggling, we have missed our targets 14 quarters in a row, we're going to find the money to hire 1,000 designers, and we're going to start doing a lot more design thinking, okay? And so design thinking is that part of your work that you ensure that what you're doing is desirable to people. It is human-centric, it is empathic, right? Meaning you show empathy, you show concern about people's problems. So the first pillar is the design thinking pillar, and right now, probably 90% of your work at this early phase should be in the design thinking world, okay? How many of you are finance people? How many people love to run spreadsheets, love to run numbers? Okay, your skills are less valuable right now, okay? Why? Because until you define your target market and you define the problem you're solving and the solution, there is no way that you can come up with any numbers that matter, okay? They will be completely speculative and basically a fantasy. So a lot of your original approach over the next several weeks until the 5th of December is all about living in the market with your customers. Some of you who remember our Procter & Gamble Brazil case, right? The woman, oh my God, what's her name, Andrea? What was her name? Who was the protagonist in the P&G Brazil case?
Joan.
Okay, so what did she go and do? She went and lived in the favelas of Brazil in order to have complete and total understanding of what some of the challenges were for the customers of these básico products that they were bringing into the bottom of the pyramid, right? Clearly, we're talking about the bottom of the pyramid. So you want to emulate someone like that, and you want to really go and live. Now, I realize between now and the 5th of December, very few of you get to go to India, get to go to the poorest favelas in Brazil, get to go to Bangladesh, get to go to parts of Africa. I realize that. But you need to figure out how to emulate that. Maybe with friends and family and other people that are back in that region, okay? The second piece is, can we build a viable business, okay? This is where the business model canvas comes in. And this is something that we're going to spend some time talking about today as well. And remember, in a social venture, a viable business is different than a for-profit venture. A social venture typically has a double or triple bottom line. It's profit plus social impact plus the least amount of negative environmental impact possible. And so you're seeing more and more public benefits corporations being created that are all about a triple bottom line, right? So viability in your world is different than viability in the tech startups that get born at MIT every day down the road. And then the third and final part is the technology, the underlying technology that you were using to build these businesses feasible? So last night I spent time with one team and they're focused on creating a platform, okay? And I have to tell you that yes, technology is helpful, but you have to recognize that this is all about behavioral change, right? And if you're going to be working in favelas and very, very sort of poor urban environments where there's either no internet connectivity or limited internet connectivity, you've got to understand the environment that you are working within, right? You can't just automatically wish that they have, you know, broadband, right? Because they don't. And so technology is not a panacea. Well, just 1 minute here. In the background, like last year, the whole prize was about early childhood education. Okay? And a lot of people say, yeah, I'm just going to create an app and it's going to be like magic and then everything's going to just work out. Bullshit. Okay? Doesn't work that way. Okay? First, people have to believe that educating their child between the ages of 1 and 6 is important. And that's more important than them going out and begging or panhandling because the family needs that money to feed themselves at night. So long before you get down to the level of, you know, am I going to build an app, are they willing to change their behavior? Okay, Amir, question?
Yeah, since you spoke about the triple bottom line, and this Hult price challenge is a social challenge.
Yeah.
So, I mean, focusing on triple bottom line gets you to a certain level.
Yeah.
But how do you exactly sell across a triple bottom line, I mean, for a social challenge in order to change a person's life or a community's life or the world for that matter?
How? Well, because the answer is in the second and third line item, right? So this morning or yesterday in the Financial Times, there was a story about New Delhi, India.
Yeah.
Most polluted city on the planet. Little kids covering their faces with handkerchiefs because they can't breathe when they go out the door, okay? So if you're a social benefits company, like one of the ones coming to ProtoHack this weekend, a company called Split Rides, okay, and you're all about removing greenhouse gases from the environment, you're affecting change. You're improving the lives of people in that environment, right? Or if you're Patagonia, right? We talked about Patagonia in class, right? And Yves Chenard stands for positive things for the environment, then his triple bottom line has a tremendous impact on all kinds of people all around the world. Or if you're Tom's Shoes, right? You all know Tom's Shoes, right? So here's Tom's Shoes. I just got a catalog, right? Because Tom's Shoes is no longer just Tom's Shoes. Tom's Shoes is now Tom's. Because Tom's now also provides clean water to people who need it. They provide glasses to people that need it. And they've become a platform for other social-minded companies, mostly using what we call the Robin Hood model, right? You all know Robin Hood. It's a child's fantasy, right? But Robin Hood says, I rob from the rich and give to the poor. This is a legal Robin Hood. They take money from wealthy people who buy Tom's Shoes in high-end high street stores, and then they donate that, they take that money, they buy shoes or they buy glasses, and they go to poor places and they give them out. So that's why the triple bottom line is in fact exactly, precisely the right way to do this. Okay? All right. So, design thinking. How many of you are coming to ProtoHack? Okay, you're going to learn a lot about design thinking at ProtoHack, okay? So I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but the bottom line is that you focus on human values, which is the thing to your right, and you learn how to show, don't tell. And that means prototypes, okay? ProtoHack is a hackathon to build prototypes, period, okay? Now, here is the lean value canvas. Let's spend some time on the lean value canvas. Lean value canvas comes from the lean startup methodology. And this is a hugely powerful tool for anybody creating a new product or a new business, whether you're in a large corporation, whether you're a social venture, or whether you're a Silicon Valley tech startup. So let me break it down for you, right? The single most important thing that you can do is you need to define who your target customer is, okay? You have to define that group of people whom you are designing a solution for, right? You are going into the marketplace with empathy through your design thinking methodology. All of this, by the way, is available in vast quantities on the internet. So all you have to do is just type in lean value canvas to Google Images, and you'll see like 44,000 of these, okay? They're everywhere. Everything here is very accessible, all right? So your customer segment, okay? You want to be as precise as possible. It's not like every single person in the country of Brazil or every single person in the country of Bangladesh. You want to be very clear about very specifics, right? The persona. Those of you who are marketeers know what a persona is. A persona is a composite which tries very, very hard to help you understand in great detail who that person is across the table from you, okay? So you want to understand, who am I solving problems for? So anybody have any examples of who you are solving problems for in the whole prize, who you decided to target? Anybody want to? You can't do very much. You can't design a business if you haven't defined your customers, period. Yeah, please, boss.
Young women who have children in Caracas.
Well, I love that clause. Young women who have children in Caracas. So that is very precise. Awesome. Okay. We've got Kit Kats or nerds?
Kit Kat.
All right. Guy that knows what he wants. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? That was great. Clause, very precise. That's where you start. And what is the pain, clause? What's the pain that these young women in Caracas with children have?
They face several challenges. A pretty big one is that most of them can't go to work because they have to spend time going to the grocery store to get the food for the day because they don't have a way to store it.
All right, so they have no ability to sort of earn a second income and help support their family because there's no good child care and there's no good support system. So if they don't have family that can help them out, then they're unable to do things. Okay, that's cool. Anyone else have something similar? It's a great example, okay, because it's precise. All right? So once you define your customer segment, you then want to be able to, using design thinking, go and understand, as we talked about earlier, what their biggest frustrations are, what their biggest pains are, what their biggest obstacles are. And so for women in Venezuela with young children, Claus's hypothesis is that their pain is they don't have appropriate child care, they don't have support for their family, therefore they can't go out and earn an income and they can't help provide financial support to their family, okay? Now, more often than not, I would encourage you to target more than one target customer in the early experimental phase because you don't know until you do the research which target customer group is going to be the most likely to resonate with your value proposition and really become the early adopter that we talked about earlier. So you want to have maybe 2 or 3, and you're going to run experiments, and you're going to say, okay, maybe it's young women in Caracas with children, maybe it's single fathers in Caracas with children, right? So there's a multitude of potential targets, and you want to test them side by side, like an ABC test, and figure out which is the one that's going to be the most productive for you, okay? Once you understand the pain point, okay, of that customer segment, the problem, then your job is to start to create potential hypothetical solutions, okay? Now that I don't want to create a solution until I understand my target customer and their problem, and then I'm going to start to brainstorm with my team. Well, there's a lot of different ways to solve a problem. What would be the ideal way to solve a problem for this target customer with this pain point, okay? And very quickly you start to validate whether that solution, in fact, has meaning, has value for them. And one way to do that, which is completely unambiguous, is rather than sit there and tell them, because language is not precise, right? I may be speaking to you in English right now, and what Sundara hears and what Will hears and what Bhavna hears from me is different because they're all from different parts of the world and they have different lenses. So my language, you receive it differently. But when you create a prototype, There's no longer any ambiguity. When you reduce your idea to a physical, tangible piece of code or a physical prototype, now I can say, ah, that's what you meant. I get it now. Okay, now I see what you were trying to create. Well, guess what? I don't like the design. I don't like the way that you navigate. You know, you're missing 2 features. There's a lot of things. And now you start to have a meaningful discussion about specifically what they do and don't like, and you start to iterate around a solution, a final solution, okay? So, customer segment, problem, solution, right? And within that solution, because you are a young, poorly funded company with no brand, you've got to have something that is unique, okay? And so in the center, we have what is called the unique value proposition. So what is a value proposition? It's a very fancy word. What is it really? What does it mean to have a value proposition? Yes, please. What's your name?
Alexa.
Alexa, what's a value proposition, Alexa? Not quite an advantage, but it's something, okay, you're certainly within the realm of reason. Now, I don't want to hit the woman in front of you, so the woman in front of you that's on your phone, just pick your head up. Yeah, you. Because if I throw that and I hit your head, you'll be very pissed off at me, okay? Great catch. All right, who else wants to tell me what a value proposition is? Anybody else? Yeah, please, what's your name?
My name is Maxim. And,
Maxim, okay.
My definition is it's a solution for a customer or for a client which we actually offer. So that's
Okay.
why it's
So it's a solution, okay. It's a solution that delivers value. Now, you ever hear the phrase, beauty is in the eye of the beholder? Right? Well, value is in the eye of the beholder. Just because you think there's value doesn't mean the customer does. So the value proposition has to create value, but it has to be something that the customer, the user, the persona, whatever you want to use, whatever word you want to use, they are the ones that perceive value. Okay? So the value proposition has to be legitimate, it has to be credible, it has to pass muster from your user. It's not for you to decide, right, whether or not it creates value. And again, back to the point Alexa raised, there's something unique, there's some competitive advantage. No one does this, or no one does this the way we do this, okay? We are unique, right? So when you look at Uber, right, does Uber have a unique value proposition today? Not at all, right? There's 18,000, rideshare companies all over the world doing pretty much the same thing, okay? So does Uber have a competitive advantage? Yes, they've raised $5 billion in cash. So they have a competitive advantage, but they don't have a unique value proposition, okay? So that's the distinction. Now, once you get into this, okay, now, and again, I would do it in the order that I said. Target customer, what problem do they have, what solution are we creating, what unique value proposition are we delivering? And then, and even cost structure and revenue for all my finance friends, don't spend too much time on this right now, okay? I mean, yes, you want to understand approximately what it's going to cost you to deliver your solution, but it's still so early that you would spend a lot of time with very little output, okay? And then channels. What are channels? What do we mean by a channel? I know you know this. Yeah, okay, please.
It's how we communicate and through which direction we communicate to the customer.
Well, you're thinking of social media channels, but I'm thinking more broadly than that. Will, what kind of channels are we talking about?
How you deliver your product.
Okay, so Will, say it louder, because I think she was saying something in the back of the room.
How you deliver your product.
Right, so remember which one do you like, my man? Snickers are so much more popular. I got it. All right. So remember that a channel of distribution can be physical as well as digital. And in urban settings, especially in favelas, slums, places like that, more often than not, because they don't have internet, channels are, in fact, more physical, right? So one of the cases I love to teach in my Masters in Social Entrepreneurship class is the Danone case. And in Danone, the French company Danone goes into sub-Saharan Africa, and they try to create demand for a yogurt-based product. Now, in Africa, there was no tradition of eating yogurt. But what Danone said is, there is so many deficiencies in the diet of a young African child that we are going to create a purpose-built yogurt product specifically for young African school children, okay? Now, they had to design that product in a way that was appropriate for the hostile environment. Refrigeration is very, very spotty. So this had to be a shelf-stable product. It had to be something that could be able to be delivered without a cold chain or cold supply chain, meaning no refrigerated trains, no refrigerated trucks, okay? It had to have flavors that young African children would enjoy, so it was very specifically built. But they still had the challenge of, oh my God, you know, we don't have 7-Elevens and Whole Foods in sub-Saharan Africa. How do we create a way to get these products to these poor people in these villages? And so they had to create their own channel. And their channel was what they affectionately called the Dana Mamas. And a Dana Mama were elders within the villages that had respect and credibility. And these Dana Mamas would go into the schools and they would go into the churches and they would start to educate the mothers about the benefits of this yogurt product that had all of the dietary requirements that a young African child needed but wasn't getting. Okay? So they had to create their own channel of distribution. And in general, in any kind of environment like the one that we're talking about for the Hult price, almost inevitably, you're going to have to think very hard about how do we really get to our target customer, okay? Because you're not in, you know, New York and there's no such thing as Fifth Avenue, what we're talking about, right? There's something very, very different there. Does that make sense? So these are very important things to consider, okay? Now, here is something that is slightly different. It's a variation. This is now the business model canvas, okay? And the thing that I want you to note first is the word hypothesis, okay? And every single one of these, almost every single one of these 9 cells is the word hypothesis. Because what you are doing is you are, at this point, all you can do is make intelligent judgments about what you believe the customer segment might be, what you believe the value proposition might be, what you believe the primary activities and the key resources would be. But you don't know, right? You don't know. I've done 7 startups, right? You ask me what, you know, anything about the next startup I'm going to create, I'll tell you, I have no idea. I haven't talked to the market yet. So people are way too overconfident. You believe that just because you think something, it's true. And in the world of startup, nothing is further from the truth. In the world of the startup, it's only true when the market tells you it's true. Okay? And so the business model canvas, like the lean value canvas, is something that is a tool that allows you to go into the market and constantly test your assumptions and determine whether or not those assumptions are valid and legitimate or whether they're completely upside down and are meaningless. Okay? So the business model canvas then brings a couple of additional elements to the formation or the design of the business. The key ones are, what are the types of relationships that I want with my customers, right? And so the question then is, remember, there are transactional relationships and there are deeply intimate relationships, right? So I'm sure all of you have had a can of Coca-Cola at one point in your life. But I will almost guarantee you that very few of you have ever purchased a can of Coca-Cola from an employee of Coca-Cola, okay? You purchased your can of Coca-Cola from a vending machine here at Hult, or you've purchased it from a kiosk or a grocery store or a vendor at a ballpark when you're watching a soccer game, right? So Coca-Cola is not about deep and intimate relationships. Coca-Cola is a transactional relationship company. They provide ubiquitous availability and you can go buy it anywhere you want, right? Now, there are companies at the opposite end of the extreme where they have deep, deep intimacy with their customers. Anybody have a guess as to what I'm talking about? Companies that know you really, really, really well? Google. Google knows more about you than your mother, okay? And your father and your grandparents, right? So there are those companies that know everything about you. Amazon is probably the perfect case, right? Amazon tells me about shit I need and I don't even know it, okay? And they're right all the time, okay? It's amazing how they do that, okay? So you have to think about on that continuum from deeply knowledgeable, deeply intimate, deeply aware to transactional and drive-by, where you're going to fit on that continuum, okay? So the type of customer relationship is important. Another key addition here are key activities. What are the things that we need to do world class? What are the things that we need to do very, very well if we are going to be a very successful long-term social venture, okay? So when you think about key activities, right, what are some of the things that Uber does really well? I mean, because they have to do a lot of stuff, but what are some of the things they do really well? I mean, you can love Uber or hate Uber. These days, I really don't like Uber very much, but they do some stuff really well. What would you say?
Payments.
Say again? Pricing on demand, if you push away the surge pricing and stuff like that, which is a bit, okay, so they do pricing on demand, yeah, that's for sure, yeah.
Transactions.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's easy to pay. The money goes to the driver, and you're sure of that.
Okay, so they're able to make the transaction with the driver very simple. Okay, right. Those are the visible things, but there's a few things they do that are invisible that they do exceptionally well. Okay, what do you think they do exceptionally well? What are some of the things that Uber does exceptionally well? Yeah, my friend in the corner. Yeah.
Connection.
What's that?
Connection.
Connection.
What do you mean by connection? What does that mean?
Well, they connect the real demand and the real supply.
Okay, a lot of companies do that really well, but that's cool. So they use big data. I should have done it overhand. Sorry about that. So they use big data, right? And what were you going to say, my friend?
Excellent customer service.
What do you mean by like? So when I hit the Uber app, I know that in a minute I know that I've got someone coming to get me. Is that what you mean by that?
Well, that as well, but also you can rate that if there's an issue, somebody will email you back right away.
All right. So rating and ranking and customer service. See, I'm starting to get dangerous here. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Please. Yeah.
Can you give you an example for Lyft? I mean, it's similar.
Yeah. Please. And I'll come to you, Leonardo. Yeah.
They do, what they do better than Uber is that they actually do background searches on their drivers.
Okay.
And they have to have a certain type of county to accept them.
Okay.
And they are much better in that aspect of Uber has been getting a lot close to a lot.
Yeah, but remember, Uber's a much more visible company, so it's a bit.
Well, Lyft is getting there as well.
They are, but I mean, I love Lyft, but they're nowhere close to Uber in terms of their footprint, their scale, right? But obviously, but what you've identified is an important activity that both companies have to engage in, right? And Uber has gotten it wrong, at least visibly, a few times, and it's been very, very damaging to them. Yes, Leonardo?
To contrast between Lyft and Uber,
Yeah.
Lyft targets is more of a friendly feel when they pick you up.
Okay.
They do that kind of luxurious feel.
Right.
They working with a company that is more high scale than the rest of these apps.
Yeah, and so, you know, now that's more of a cultural value thing, right? So let me just tell you what I think they do. Uber is the big data company, right? Is it any surprise that when you're in an urban environment and you click on your phone, there are Uber cars within 2 minutes from you? Do you think that's a coincidence? Uber uses big data. They understand how to model demand at specific micro locations within a city, okay? And that's why when I click on my Uber app, there's an Uber driver there in 2 minutes. Now, Lyft doesn't do that quite as well. There are times I wait 15 or 20 minutes for a Lyft car. Now, I'll wait 15 or 20 minutes for a Lyft car because I like the driver's attitude better. And I think it's a more friendly person, so if I'm not in a rush, I'll wait for Lyft. But if I need a ride immediately, nobody does a better job. So everybody sees all this external stuff, but nobody understands that the real core value that Uber has goes back to a little bit about matching supply and demand, right? That they are amazingly precise about that kind of stuff. Yes, please.
Yeah, I spoke once with the Uber driver.
Yeah.
He told me that when I first pick you, I can't pick you again until 1 month or 1 month later.
He can't pick you up again until 1 month?
Yeah, it's like, because I told him that I can cancel the order, I can order it again because I want to enter another address or something. He told me don't do that because if I just pick you up, I can't do it again. I have to give that opportunity to my other driver.
Okay, well that's very, you know, and that's a problem. Thank you. Elise, right, Elise? Elisa, thank you, Elisa. But that's only because Uber has gotten too many drivers and they're not making money because they're crowding the market, right?
That's good. That's not good for the company.
Right, yeah, it's a rule for the company because they've hired too many drivers and there's so much competition, they want them to make money. Anyway, what I'm trying to identify is often when you think about a company, there are many things that you see them do, but you don't really look deeply enough to understand their true, unique key activities and competitive advantages, okay? So I need you to think really hard about that stuff. All right, now, 12 principles for bottom of the pyramid innovation. It comes from the author C.K. Prahalad. C.K. Prahalad wrote the book, The Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid, in 2007. Okay, Professor Prahalad passed away a few years ago. This is a landmark book, and anybody that is working on this challenge should be aware of this book. Some of the key points: price performance. So for example, Danone needed to deliver a very high value product for 1 rand, a 1 rand coin. They needed people to be able to afford that product, okay? So you get a lot of value for the dollar, which is a critical deliverable in these bottom of the pyramid applications, okay? You want to use hybrid innovation. What I mean by that is you don't want to recreate the wheel. You want to leverage all of the infrastructure that already exists. So I was sitting with the team last night on the Open IDEO Challenge, and they wanted to build a portal to allow themselves to communicate between 2 parties. And I said, don't build a portal using all new technology. Leverage Facebook, leverage WeChat, leverage Snapchat, leverage Quora, leverage all of these existing apps, because the odds that someone's going to create an app and they're going to adopt your new app is very unlikely. So rather than spend insane amounts of money creating brand new technology, take advantage of all the technology that has already been created, that's already world-class, that's already been adopted, and extend it, build on top of it, okay? Far more cash efficient to do it that way. Next, scale of operations, right? So let's be clear. Claus talked about focusing on women, young mothers with young children in urban environments in Caracas, right? You start small, but the whole prize wants you to impact how many people? 10 million, okay? So very quickly you got to go from young moms with young kids in Caracas to young moms with young kids all around the world. So you have to think about, can I make this scale? Is there a way to get this to scale? So Airbnb has done an extraordinary job of learning how to scale a business almost overnight, okay? Literally almost overnight. So yes, you start small, you start with a persona, but very quickly, once you validate that your solution works for that persona, you need to be able to replicate that success in other cities, other regions, other countries, other continents. Because you've got to show a path to 10 million in 5 years, right? So you've got to be able to really validate that business model quickly so that you can scale it. Okay? Let me go forward here. The work that you create. So let's say you're creating jobs. You're trying to create jobs. You can't expect that these people know how to read. You can't expect that they have a deep education. So you've got to be able to create the kind of training and the kind of job profiles and definitions that allows people with very low skills to do the work. So there's a wonderful example of an Indian social entrepreneur named Bunker Roy, R-O-Y. And Bunker Roy created Barefoot College. And Barefoot College was created for all those poor people in India that could not afford to go to college. It's a great, iconic example of what the Open IDEO Challenge would love to do. And what Bunker Roy said, hey, you want to go to college? Here's the deal. Let's build the college together. So anybody that wants to come to this college, first we actually have to build the college. So we have to build the buildings. We have to build, all of the infrastructure. And then we're going to educate you. And what does he educate them on? Very important, very practical skills that allow them to make a living in India, in Bangladesh, in Pakistan. And what he's taught them to do is do things like install solar panels on people's homes. Okay, and install water filtration systems in communities so that people can get energy and people can actually drink clean, potable water, right? But he had to create these jobs for people that were not well educated. And so their college was essentially a vocational school so that they could go out and provide services in their respective communities, right? So you got to understand what you're working with. They're not people with master's degrees typically, okay? It's very important to understand, all right? We talked about the importance of access to the customer with the Danone case, right? And you have to challenge the conventional wisdom, right? If people say we've always done it this way, my first answer is, so what? Doesn't mean it's the right way, and it doesn't mean it's the right way in the future, right? So you've got to, so people thought Steve Jobs was crazy when he created a retail store. And everybody said, no, you don't need retail stores to sell computers anymore, Steve. That's a waste of money. And Steve Jobs was a little bit ahead of everyone else. He said, you know what, you do. Even though there's this thing called Dell, and they build computers from scratch, and they will make whatever computer you want, and they'll ship it to you, and they got this world-class supply chain. I'm looking to create a community. I want people to come in my stores because I want to have Apple enthusiasts work together and become a member of the Apple community. And so for him, the retail stores have served a higher purpose, and they're now the most profitable retail stores on the planet, more profitable than Louis Vuitton or Prada or Gucci or Chanel or you name the brand, Tiffany, right? Because he understood something. He challenged the conventional wisdom. And that's, most good entrepreneurs don't accept the status quo. They challenge the conventional wisdom, okay? Now, some of you may have heard of Jugad innovation or reverse innovation, and one of the great examples is General Electric Corporation was working in India, right? GE, when many of you took my GE case last week, we had a great discussion around Jack Welch. Jack Welch started in India 30 years before most people, and he understood the incredibly well-educated Indian population. And he started to set up operations there a long time ago. And one of the things he understood was that in India, because of dietary deficiencies, many people wind up with heart diseases. And so what you needed was an extremely rugged and affordable electrocardiogram medical device that would allow rural doctors that went to their, make house calls on their patients using tuk-tuks or scooters or whatever it is. And these medical devices better be rugged because if they fell off the back of a scooter or a tuk-tuk, they still had to work. And so reverse innovation is we start with a clean sheet of paper, right? And we design for extreme affordability. This is not going to be a $20,000 EKG machine. This is going to be a $200 EKG machine, okay? Multiple orders of magnitude reduction in price and cost. Working backwards from a $200 design, how do I create a battery-powered, ruggedized EKG machine that doctors in India can use as they make house calls on their patients, okay? That's reverse innovation. Reverse innovation is starting with a clean sheet of paper. I realize you guys have classes. We're going to wrap up in 2 minutes, okay? For those of you who have to go. And then I'll take questions from those of you who don't have to rush, okay? But reverse innovation is we start with the price point that is affordable. We create a functional spec. We create a prototype that matches the price point that's affordable in the marketplace, and we work backwards and we create the product. Very important part of the way that we do work at the bottom of the pyramid, okay? So, now let me leave you with this, okay? There is a reason why the Clinton Global Initiative and the Hult Prize have asked you and us to work on this, okay? They've asked us to work on this because this is a really hard problem to solve, okay? If this was an easy problem to solve, it would not be a challenge in the Hult Prize, okay? So I'm an Italian guy, okay? And one of my ancestors, this guy named Machiavelli, some of you may have heard of him, okay? He was a smart guy, and he wrote a bunch of books, but one went viral long before Amazon. It was called The Prince. And The Prince is still very much quoted today, okay? But what he said is very relevant to social change. There is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain of success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. Because the innovator has for his or her enemies all of those who have done well under the old conditions, and only lukewarm defenders and those who may do well under the new. And what he is basically saying is the old guard doesn't like change. The old guard is making a very nice living with the way the world exists today. And the minute that you come in and you try to change the equation, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to, they're going to crawl out from under a lot of different rocks, and they're going to start to push back with every fiber in their being to prevent you from being successful. So to be a social change agent, to be a social entrepreneur, or to be an entrepreneur in any field, is to understand that what you're doing more than anything is you're changing behavior. How many people like to change their behavior? About zero, last I checked, okay? So one of the hardest things to do is to understand that what you're really trying to accomplish here is you're trying to find people that want to change, that have not found a vehicle to allow them to change, and your solution is going to make it easy for them. It doesn't mean that there won't be a lot of other people coming into the ecosystem that are going to try to prevent you from being successful. I've seen some amazing inventions coming out of the top research labs in the world that have failed, not because they weren't amazing inventions, but the power of resistance was so great that it overwhelmed the entrepreneurs that were not resilient enough to deal with it, okay? So make no mistake about what this is all about. This is about change, massive global change, okay? That's what all of these whole price challenges have been about, okay? So, we may not be in Silicon Valley, right? But you got to bring that mindset in with you. So Claus asked the question about specifically for the pitch, okay? Now we had some guy here called Stuart from the pitch the other night. Did anybody go to that? And what did Stuart have to say? Not much? Okay. All right. So if I was a judge, what I would want to see more than anything is that this idea that you are bringing to me has validation in the market. This is not some dream. This is not some fantasy that you have gone into the favelas of Caracas. You've worked with young moms and their kids, and you have validated that there's a problem. You have validated that the solution that you're proposing is something that they think is viable, right? And I would love to have you capture some testimony on video or through email or things that say that Claus's idea has merit and we see value in it, and we look forward to seeing Claus and his team evolving and maturing this idea further because we think it's something that might make our lives better, okay? So to me, the single most important thing I would like to see as a judge is validation of your idea, period. Now, if you can create, and what are you thinking? Are you thinking of a platform, or what is your specific idea? Will it be a digital solution? Is it a physical place for people to go? So can you create sketches and images of what this community center or whatever looks like, okay? So now that you validated the idea, here's what the solution is going to look like in rough form. Call it a sketch, call it a quote-unquote a low-def prototype, whatever you want to call it, okay? To me, that's the essence of it. If I sit in front of a student team and I'm judging, and it becomes clear to me that this is nothing more than an ivory tower idea that has never been tested in the marketplace, my brain goes like this, done, okay? If you're not serious enough to go test in the market, then you're not serious. So there's a reason why so many of our students that do this, that go into the whole price, spend months in Africa or India or Bangladesh or Latin America, wherever it is they go, okay? Months there piloting.
For the 5th of December, you mean?
No, I mean, for the 5th of December, you can't run a pilot, I don't think, unless you have friends back in that area, but you can certainly communicate and get feedback. And using a webcam, you can videotape people in their own words saying what it is that why this is a problem, and why your solution seems to have valid merit. Okay? Yeah, please, Will?
What about for Saturday?
What about for Saturday? Oh, this Saturday? So for Saturday, I mean, so those of you who are going to be at ProtoHack on Saturday, you need to, hopefully between when we started this whole price journey 3 weeks ago and this Saturday, you've defined who your target customer is, right? You have some idea of what a problem is that you want to solve. You have some idea of what solution you may want to bring together, and now you're going to use that opportunity to create a prototype that you can then put in front of your target customers and get some feedback from them. That's the ideal scenario, right? Now, if you haven't gone and validated the target persona, the customer, the problem, then I would suggest you try to do as much as you can between now and Saturday morning, even if it means not coming to the happy hour, and that the team hauls up and says, okay, let's get very clear so we hit the ground running on Saturday. Okay? Use the opportunity to get mentored with all these awesome mentors on how to use these tools. That to me would be the biggest value, okay? Yeah, anybody else? Yeah, Amir?
For static, there are some pitches for the companies or teams who are doing.
Yeah.
Can we have an opportunity to pitch our idea across?
Anybody who wants to pitch an idea can pitch, yeah. That's part of the experience.
And we can accept our team members.
You can accept whoever you want. First of all, you can decide that you like some, a challenge that Split Rides or Future Cities Initiatives does, or one of the Design for America teams do. You can, come together with one of those teams. You can create your own idea, pitch it, and you can try to attract. Now, there's no guarantee that if you pitch your idea, people are going to like your idea. It's sort of I wouldn't call it a popularity contest, but it's certainly it will show very quickly whether your idea has merit, at least in that group of 100 people. Okay? Yeah, please.
So we should bring our prototype with us.
Well, you don't have to. I mean, the whole point of this is to create a prototype. And if you have a prototype, by all means, bring it. Get some feedback from the judges, right? And then think about refining and evolving that prototype, right? So what is it? A digital prototype? This is not the CIA. You can at least tell me if it's digital or physical.
Physical.
Okay, so yeah, you can bring your prototype. If you're very nervous about showing it, you can bring it in some black suitcase and we can put a veil over you guys, and you can sit in the corner and if it's that secret, like double secret kind of thing, and whatever you want to do. Of course, you should bring it. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? All right. So who's coming to ProHack? Cool. Now the energy in the room is going to be unbelievable. Okay, the community that's come together is going to be amazing. I cannot wait. It's going to be awesome.